B11529 variant, some of which were already reported in Botswana and Hong Kong.
I will say we don't know enough about this variant. No one does. I think probably the UK knows more than most because of the excellent work we do on surveillance. But I think it is right that we take this approach and we remain cautious.
We're actively monitoring any developments, and if kinakailangan ng agaran at immediate action, ay gagawin po ng BPN.
Some countries, including some Asian countries, are rushing to tighten their borders as a new variant of the coronavirus has been detected in South Africa. The Philippines is preparing to further loosen restrictions meanwhile and welcome foreign tourists. Should government secure the country's borders as early as possible to prevent the spread of this new variant? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to The Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay, and now joining me from Manila, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star. Ami, good evening and happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Not so happy, bad news.
Oo nga, yeah, we'll be talking a lot about this new variant. I don't even know how it's classified, no, kung of interest or concern. But very quickly, what other non-COVID news are you looking at?
Puro ganyan minomonitor ng Malacanang, of course. And yung warning ng Commission on Elections sa mga candidates for in-person campaigning. Bawal yung physical contact, di ba? And pati yung traslasyon for the second year in a row. Wala na naman tayong traslasyon. Although iisip nila ngayon kung paano gagawin to allow the faithful to continue their devotion to the Black Nazarene, siyempre.
So even yung campaigns, COVID-related. But very quickly, before we go to our first guest, because we'll be talking a lot about COVID, pero ito, naiintriga ako. Senator Bongo, is he still running or not?
Sabi ng mga bata niya, tuloy-tuloy pa rin daw. But siyempre, well, if we're hearing it from him, mukhang nag-aalangan siya ngayon dahil we don't know, medyo malabo yung mga statement niya. He's willing to make the supreme sacrifice. Yeah, no, sige. Anyway, I suspect next week naman, as always, we talk about COVID, we talk about politics, COVID, politics. Etong Friday evening, we talk about COVID again. Let's bring in our first guest from the Russian Direct Investment Fund, Chief Executive Officer Kirill Dmitriev. Good evening, Mr. Dmitriev.
Hello, great to be with you.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I hope you're braced. We will be asking a lot of questions about the South African variant, but first, we do want to talk about Sputnik. I think at least it sets us off on some good news. I understand that a latest study in Hungary, if I'm not mistaken, actually places Sputnik very high in terms of its grades on its efficacy. Could you tell us about the latest findings, sir?
Yeah, thank you so much. So yes, it's great news from Hungary that Sputnik was declared as #1 in terms of efficacy against mortality from COVID at 98%. So we took the first place and other vaccines follow. And then we are after Moderna as far as efficacy against the infection at 85.7%. And Moderna is just slightly more than 1% more efficient on this. So Sputnik is sort of in the top 2 places. #1 against mortality, #2 against infection, and many other people follow. And this is also a key slide I think you are showing, which is the data we released earlier this year on the longevity of protection. And mRNA vaccine, it's officially data, they are declining in efficacy, and we showed this 80% efficacy of Sputnik V 6 to 8 months after vaccination. And I think this is very important because longevity of vaccines is important. And this is a slide you are showing on the Hungarian data that shows Sputnik is one of the most efficient vaccines in the world. So good data indeed. And it's very important we get data from Hungary, from Philippines, from many other places on the efficacy and safety and longevity of Sputnik vaccine.
Okay, Mr. Dmitriev, could I ask you to just drill down a bit more on the longevity of the efficacy? I know you already started off discussing it, but this is something, of course, that a lot of people are now talking about. Everybody's bringing out their vaccine cards, checking when was my 6-month mark, and so on. You're saying, what are you saying with regards to the efficacy, and does it still wane as well for Sputnik in particular?
So thank you, and I think this is a key question, and particularly when we see explosion in cases in Europe, in places where most countries have 80% plus vaccination rates of adults. And there is a question, how can you see such an increase in cases? And what mRNA producers have said, and this is this graph, they said that, look, after 4 months, mRNA vaccine efficacy declines to less than 50%. So Pfizer is showing 47%. On months 6 and 8, it's below 30%. And what we have shown in San Marino, and will show in some other countries, including Argentina and others, is that Sputnik protection lasts much longer. And this is, 80%, 6 to 8 months. Now, this is not to say that we should only use Sputnik, but this is to say that combination of Sputnik Light vaccine with mRNA vaccine, Sputnik Light as a booster, can really play a key role to lengthen the response of mRNA vaccines. And we believe it's about vaccine combinations, and vaccine combinations of Sputnik Light with mRNA vaccines. And by the way, Philippines government already approved Sputnik Light as a booster for other vaccines. This is a way to go, particularly in light of those dangerous new mutations that we see coming from South Africa. And we believe it should be about vaccine combinations, and vaccine combinations, including with Sputnik Light, will provide for longer immunity.
But considering the efficacy of Sputnik V, what's the duration before you recommend boosters? Because we are starting our booster campaign now, and the recommendation is for 6 months for nearly all the vaccines. In the case of Sputnik, what is it? The best time?
So our scientists believe that typically it's good to vaccinate with Sputnik about once a year. But right now, because there is a big epidemiological threat, and because new variants are coming, the 6 months period can also be prudent. So I think in light of new variants, mutations, if people want to be really prudent, and I think Philippines government, by the way, has done tremendous work, and Philippine scientists, to fight the virus and be very successful. I think 6 months is a very prudent time frame, but I think going forward, it will be around every 12 months there will be a shot.
The Russian health minister was quoted as saying that Sputnik is 83% effective against the Delta variant. Could you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so Sputnik originally was registered to be around 91% efficient against the original strain. And then with Delta, efficacy declined to 83%, but this is again very good efficacy. And it's 83% against infection and 94% efficacy against hospitalization. And that's important. It's Russian data, but it's collaborated data we see from Argentina, Mexico, many other countries. And also very importantly, Sputnik Light, which is our one-shot vaccine, is 70% effective against Delta. But when it's used as a booster, we believe it brings other vaccines also to 83 and more efficacy against Delta variant. So we are very efficient against Delta variant. On the new variant from South Africa, we'll need 2-3 weeks to study the variant. Our scientists, will then determine will existing vaccine protect as well as against Delta and other variants, or will some modifications be needed? But we have a platform that can be modified very quickly if needed as well.
Mr. Dmitriev, I want to zoom out a bit, if you don't mind, not on Sputnik, but on COVID itself. As far as you know, and as far as you can understand it or analyze it, what's happening in Europe? Is it driven by new variants? Is it a matter of having loosened protocols too much? I mean, what's driving the current surge?
Yeah, we believe it's a combination of several factors. So one was, of course, loosening the protocols and, frankly, a little bit of overconfidence in mRNA vaccines. Because the promise of mRNA vaccines was you get 2 shots and everything is done and you have herd immunity, and I think many people relaxed too early. But a real issue we see is that 5 months after mRNA vaccines, after 40% of the population gets vaccinated with the mRNA vaccines, we see a big surge. And it happened in Singapore. It's pretty much happening in all of the European countries. And we can even predict it will be happening more in France and Italy, because they vaccinated 40% population a little bit later, and we predicted they will have a surge at the end of November, and this is what's happening. So there is a clear waning of mRNA vaccine efficacy. Now, mRNA booster shots is one way to have a solution, but we believe it's important to use booster shots of other vaccines as well, because combo of different vaccines will last longer. But there is no question that a big part of the surge in Europe is caused by the waning efficacy of mRNA vaccines 5 months after, and this is data from Israel, from the US, and this is really a serious issue that needs to be addressed.
There were reports of high vaccine hesitancy in Russia. I think for most of the past year. Is this still true at this time? And how did you get over it, the hesitancy?
Yeah, so definitely big hesitancy, in many countries, including in Russia. So right now, for 18+% population, we only have around 50% vaccination rate, and we want to get to 80% vaccination rate. And several factors played here. Russia was quite successful early to fight the virus. So we didn't have too many cases, and many people became complacent. And complacency is not a good thing. And basically they said, oh, COVID will go away, so no need to vaccinate. And then, of course, now vaccination rates are increasing. I think Delta variant was a big wake-up call for many of the people. So we see vaccination rates increasing a lot. And also data we get from Hungary, San Marino, other places also showing Russian people. It's not just Russian data, but it's independent data from the rest of the world that's showing very high efficacy and safety of Sputnik.
Yeah, and I think these latest numbers will also raise the level of interest as well for Filipinos on Sputnik. As everybody knows, this was not one of the first vaccines that made it to the rollout here in the Philippines. Notwithstanding that, I think now a lot of people will be looking at this, especially given the new numbers. But back to those numbers, can you parse through that? And is there anything to qualify with respect to how it is performing with different segments of society? As you know, we're starting rollout as well with minors and so on. Do you have specific data on different segments of society?
Yeah, so this data on Sputnik protecting against, death from COVID, 98% is a very high number. It means that, if an average, rate to die from COVID is X, then 98% people will be more protected by Sputnik. Now, in the age category below 45 years old, it's 100% protection, Hungary data showed. Also, this week, we introduced adolescent form of the vaccine in Russia. So it just was approved yesterday, and it's for 12 to 17-year-olds, slightly lower concentration. Will be launched in Russia in December, will be launched in international markets in January of next year. And also we have intranasal form of the vaccine. And this is also very interesting because you basically inject it as a liquid in your nose and mouth, and it protects your nose and mouth quite a bit. So we are very innovative, and we are working very close with your scientists. And I'll tell you, Philippines has done one of the best jobs in the world by having portfolio of many different vaccines and being able to compare their performance and their results. And this is really the smart way to do it, and that's why you have such a great result of your vaccination campaign.
So will you also be asking for emergency use authorization in the Philippines for the pediatric vaccines for Sputnik?
Yes, so we expect to apply for the approval of Philippines for use pediatric vaccine next year, for intranasal form of vaccine next year. And if we need to change vaccine for any upcoming variants, later on in the time, we'll also do it. And we work very well with your regulators. And I think it's very important. Your regulators do not treat politics. They're really focused on science, really focused on protecting people. And this is very important at the time of pandemics. And this is why you have access to all of the vaccines and you have data on all of the vaccines. And this is a great work of Philippines government and your Philippines vaccine czar.
Are you working on versions of the vaccine for much younger children, let's say 5 to 11?
Yes, so we are now starting some trials of vaccine for even younger children, and the Institute of Gamaleya will tell you about this later on. But yes, we believe we'll have a vaccine for younger children as well. But obviously, this pediatric question is very important. So our scientists are very conservative in the way we approach it, and we use very lower doses of the vaccine. But yes, we have already for adolescents, and we'll have vaccine for younger children as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the importance and the wisdom behind a combination of vaccines in the strategies to have a really more diverse mix. But as you know, a lot of people now, as they look at boosters, everybody's studying up on homologous or heterologous, using the same or not the same. How does Sputnik perform as a third or booster dose?
So Sputnik Light, we believe, is a great booster. And we actually showed some data from Argentina that, for example, Sputnik Light, if it boosts Sinopharm vaccine, it shows 10 times increase in antibodies and 10 times increase in T-cell response than if it is boosted by Sinopharm. Now, and this is data from Argentina. It's a small data set, and still, more time needs to be had to really have this data published in a peer-reviewed magazine. But we really are a big believer in combos of vaccine. Sputnik was the first vaccine combo, and we specifically designed Sputnik Light to be a universal booster to other vaccines as well. So I'm sure the Philippine government will give recommendations, but our understanding is that Sputnik Light can be used in Philippines as a booster to other vaccines. And once again, we have lots of demands, so it's not a question of trying to do more of Sputnik, but we really believe that vaccine combos provide longer and more powerful combinations because they basically have broader array of antibodies, and this allows for longer immune response.
Yeah, but you mentioned Sinopharm. The majority of the vaccines here, as you know, are Sinovac. We're getting a lot of Pfizer and Moderna. How does it perform specifically, only because you mentioned Sinopharm, but how does it perform as a booster in combination with these others vaccines that are more dominantly used here?
Yeah, so with AstraZeneca, we started joint clinical trials already in February, and we showed that AstraZeneca plus Sputnik Light gives higher level of antibodies and T cells than just AstraZeneca and AstraZeneca. And in Argentina, already 500,000 people received AstraZeneca shot combined with Sputnik Light shot. With Moderna, we are also showing good results. And in Argentina, already 1.5 million people received Sputnik and Moderna combination. So we are one of the most advanced producers to really try combination with different vaccines. Also, Honduras did a study of Sputnik and Pfizer and showed that it provides very good immune response and very safe combination. So we believe, based on data from Argentina, Honduras, Azerbaijan, and others, combinations are incredibly safe and provide very good response. And Sputnik Light definitely is doing very well with other vaccines.
How is production going along? Because we heard reports, how you mentioned Argentina. We heard reports that they had to resort to other brands because of delays in delivery of Sputnik. Is this being addressed? And we've had similar problems, I understand, in our country as well.
Yeah, so everything has been already sold in August. So it is true that over the summer we had delays for about a month and a half, because there was huge demand for vaccines in Russia. So there were some delays, but all of the manufacturers have had delays. But starting from September, no delays. We are completely on schedule. We completely fulfilled our delivery to Philippines and protecting 5 million Filipinos. So there are no delays of second component anywhere in the world, and we deliver completely on schedule right now. But of course, during pandemic, we all had our issues, but it's very important that all of the production issues are resolved. We have great production in Russia and also production in other countries. And for example, Serum Institute, which is the largest vaccine producer in the world, is already producing Sputnik Light, as well as 5 other Indian manufacturers. So we're successful not only to do production well in Russia, but also have more than 10 countries effectively produce Sputnik and Sputnik Light, such as India, such as China, Korea, and others.
And of course, we had always been asking about production in the Philippines. Is that still in the pipeline?
Well, we are working on this. It's taking a bit longer because we were focused on, launch already in facilities that are sort of manufacturing vaccines before. But we believe that in Philippines it's feasible. We believe it will be done in several stages, where we do fill and finish first, and then the actual production second. And we hope to finalize something maybe Q1 of next year.
Well, at what point are the negotiations in at this time?
So on production, again, we have several partners. We basically discuss, as I mentioned, this fill and finish first, and we believe that Q1 we can have this agreed and start doing fill and finish in the first half of next year, and then full production hopefully, sometime next year as well. But we know it can be done, and it has been done because Argentina already produces Sputnik. Many other countries produce Sputnik. So it's just a question of finding the right partner and the right facilities.
Okay.
What might be the capability for production of that kind of operation?
So basically, capabilities require, having the right equipment.
How many doses can be produced?
I think in Philippines, again, our goal will be to produce, up to 10 million doses a month. And I think that would be sufficient because we have, Serum who will be producing tens of millions of doses. But we really believe in this distributed capacity because it means that at the time of, next mutation or next big challenge, Philippines has additional capacity and has additional vaccine independence to produce its own vaccine.
Mr. Dmitriev, I'm just wondering, other than vaccines, are there other technologies, are there other approaches to medicine? Of course, a lot of people are now interested in molnupiravir, non-vaccine interventions to fight COVID. Are there perhaps developments on this front as well from Russia?
Yeah, definitely. So we started to fight pandemic first with tests. And we are doing, by the way, some very innovative things on testing. So we have one machine that's very high volume testing machine and another machine that's very sort of precise, and you can keep it at home and it gives you analysis of several different viruses, not just COVID. But we also have, and we are big believers in favipiravir, which is in Japan under trademark of Avigan. And we had great results using this in Russia. We also invested in production of favipiravir, and it showed great results if you take it in basically 5-6 days from the time of infection. It's not very helpful after 5-6 days, but if you take it within 5-6 days, you basically shorten duration of disease by half based on the data we have. So we welcome the new COVID pills that are hopefully coming to the market. We believe monoclonal antibody cocktails also that AstraZeneca and some others are good. So I think we have more and more tools at our disposal, and this is exactly the right way to think about it. Vaccines is a big part of protection, but we need to have other tools as well, and jointly with those tools, we can completely defeat the virus.
Well, apart from an intranasal vaccine, are you also working on other forms, such as maybe an oral, is that possible, oral vaccine?
Yes, so we again had intranasal vaccine, and President Putin announced 2 days ago that he actually became one of the participants in the trial of intranasal vaccine. And he actually received it and described it. And we believe it's actually very important. And eventually, maybe you need to have a combination of intranasal and some injection, because intranasal and oral basically protects your cavity here and serves as a very important barrier for the virus. And then even if this barrier is penetrated, you have the vaccine that fights the rest of it. So we definitely believe in intranasal form, and adenoviral vaccines such as Sputnik are naturally created for basically also intranasal form because of the nature of adenoviral virus. So we are big believers in different forms of the vaccine.
Okay, Mr. Dmitriev, we're almost out of time. Just one quick question. This will lead us, frankly, to our next guest later on. But as you know, a lot of people are now concerned again about this new variant, this variant, let's just say, from South Africa. But how do vaccine developers, how should we take it every time a new variant comes out? What would you say is the message from vaccine developers? Because the public always tends to, we don't know if we're overreacting. But how do actual vaccine manufacturers take it? And in particular, with the platform that Sputnik uses, what is the versatility of that platform to react to variants as they emerge?
Well, that's definitely the key question. And actually, we have very key protocol not to lose even a second of time. So as soon as an important variant is detected and really a concerning variant, we start already production of basically vaccine against this specific variant right away. We don't even wait for any of the additional information. We start doing sequencing so that we can have the vaccine specifically for this variant. Now, in parallel, we have testing of how does serum of vaccinated Sputnik people attacks this variant. So it takes about 2-3 weeks. And so far, we have seen that existing serum of Sputnik vaccine completely, attacks the variant very well. And that's why Sputnik has very high protection rate. But just in case it doesn't, and we need to introduce a modification, already sort of 60 days from the time we started creation of this vaccine of the virus, we can deploy and ship first vials of the new vaccine. So we haven't had to do it yet because we are very efficient against all of the variants, and Sputnik has showed this. But if we need to, we are capable of doing that. And I think other vaccine manufacturers think along the same lines. So the key is that we are not losing a second. But so far, Sputnik vaccine is very efficient with all of the new mutations.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Mr. Kirill Dmitriev, CEO of the Russian Direct Investment Fund. Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will take a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News. With us now, Dr. Kongki Lim Quizon of the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, or NITAG, for COVID-19 vaccines. Good evening, Dr. Kongki. Welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Robbie. Good evening, Amy. Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Ngayon
happy
pa lang yung
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving sa Amerika.
Opo, sa lahat ng sa lahat ng kamag-anak nyo, sa lahat ng kamag-anak nating lahat naman tayo may binabating happy Thanksgiving dyan. Dr. Kongki, diretso tayo. Itong bagong variant from South Africa. Panic na ba tayo?
Hindi muna.
Okay.
Inaaral pa. Pero it is a cause of concern. Ayoko sabihin na variant of concern, no? Kasi inaaral pa nila. But what the WHO told us is that ingat muna, be vigilant about it, because ang difference nito ay mukhang nakitaan nila na maraming mutations itong virus na to. And the more mutations that the virus has, may impact ito on how the virus behaves. And later on, may impact ito kung paano yung diagnostic, therapeutic, and vaccination natin. Kung aandar ba regarding this one. So tingin muna tayo, at lahat sila nabanggit ni Mr. Dmitriev kanina na no time to waste, habang may nakikita ng ganyan, sige, aral na. Para nun, in 2 to 3 weeks, kung talagang naging concern yan ng lahat, at least meron ng initial or preliminary studies.
Pero nabanggit nyo po that this, as you said, this is a cause for concern, but let's not call it yet. It is not yet called a variant of concern. What will it take for it to be a variant of concern?
Well, I do not know what it will take to call it a variant of concern. Maghintay tayo ng a few more weeks. Well, the good news is that it was picked up, na-identify agad. But what we don't know is what the situation actually is in South Africa, kung gano'n na ba kalaganap. At that was a very interesting question that you posed kanina dun sa bisitang nauna, is that may kinalaman kaya yung nangyayaring surge sa Europe dito sa variant na to, so to speak. But WHO also said na as soon as talagang concern na to, meron na tong talagang pangalan na one of the Greek alphabets. As of now, it's variant B 1.1.500 plus yata. Wala pa siyang Greek na pangalan. I guess pag nilagyan na siya ng pangalan, then
New daw, new. New. Malapit na.
new na siya?
New, hindi, naka-ready lang. Hindi pa, parang bagyo.
na siya.
Alam natin, pagka
New
pumasok
na.
yung bagyo, alam natin yung pero wala pa, hindi pa official yun.
wala pa. Yeah,
Nag-uusapan
right.
lang ngayon ng WHO, advisors to the WHO. Hinihintay nga namin ngayong gabi. Kasi this Friday, today in Europe, nag-uusap pa sila. But in the
Right.
meantime, our country has suspended inbound flights from South Africa, Botswana, and other countries na nakitaan ng anyang variant. Ano pa yung maisa-suggest nyo that we can do in the meantime while we're waiting for advisories from the WHO?
Well, we shall have to continue to protect ourselves, Ami, no? At saka kasi remember mo, a few months back, when sabi natin, pag nandyan na ang bakuna, dapat most expedient, mabilis at pinakamaraming tao na mababakunahan, no? Yun ang isa sa mga paraan para nun, hindi lumitaw ang anumang variant. O kaya pag may lumilitaw na variant, you may be able to stop it dead on its track. Ganon. So, let us please have ourselves vaccinated. Yun ang isa sa mga talagang importanteng makakatulong, variant or no variant, kung ano man yung existing muna, maproprotektahan natin ang sarili natin.
And you of course are recommending that people get the boosters na, yung mga qualified.
Yung qualified, thank you for saying yung qualified, which at the moment stands at yung mga healthcare workers, dahil nga yun sa grabe exposure nila, and then for the senior citizens, and then those who are at immunocompromised state, okay? Iba yan doon sa may comorbidity. Ito yung immunocompromised. Ibig sabihin, walang kalaban-laban yung katawan nila.
Yan yung mga may cancer, HIV, di ba, no? But uulitin ko lang na the health experts are saying mas maganda kung hindi aagahan yung booster, right? You wait daw. The longer you wait, kasi 6 months yung minimum na sinasabi. The longer you wait daw, the more effective the booster. Tama ba yun?
Right. Kanya-kanya kasi sila, no? Parang kasing, remember mo, pinag-usapan natin yun, yung difference ng first and second dose. Meron talagang optimum time na kapag ka nag-inject ka uli, tataas at magme-maintain doon ng antibodies mo. Pagka napaaga ka, hindi pa man talaga optimum time yon, hindi mo rin marireach. Okay? So that is the reason why most of the vaccines, ang rekomendasyon is 6 months, at least 6 months, and then you get the additional dose.
So ang pinakamarami dito, Sinovac, that's 6 months.
Right. Actually, ayon sa aking listahan, ang at least 2 months ay Janssen lamang.
Yes.
Yung single dose.
Yes.
Oo. Lahat ng ibang brands na ginagamit natin ay at least 6 months before you get the additional dose.
Okay. Doc, alam mo, ang level ng technical knowledge ng karamihan ng tao ngayon is titingnan lang nila kung saan sila kailan ba yung huling bakuna nila, di ba? Kailan yung second dose. So let's say may pamilya ngayon dyan nanonood. Tapos yung buong pamilya, let's say May. Let's say Mayo nagpa-second dose yung buong So by December, lampas na, mga 7 months na. What does that mean for their Christmas plans? Ano ibig sabihin? Wag muna kayong mag-Noche Buena. What does this mean?
Well, kung May sila natapos ng second dose, theoretically, dapat November magkaroon sila, di ba? Mabigay na yung additional dose nila. Well, wala naman tayong inaasahan na hindi sila may pwedeng mangyari sa kanila aside from yung inaasahan natin na mga mild adverse reactions, yung ganun, yun lang. So makakapamasko pa rin naman tayo na maluwalhati.
Kasi nakakaano parang, because
Oo.
I think a lot of people are still, and ako personally, when we say waning efficacy, 'Di ba? Yun pa rin yung ano ba ibig sabihin nun? Hindi naman yun yung tipong after 6 months tigil na yan. But gaano ka rapid yung decline sa efficacy
Okay.
ba?
Okay. Ganito yun, no? Anything na about numero, may range yan. Hindi naman yung eksaktong 6 months. Dead. Wala na. Yung babang-baba na, no? So, nobody can tell you na at the 7-month kaya wala na. Yung gano'n. Lahat ng mga yan, tansya. So, if the experts already said that at 6 months, recommended na mag-booster na, well, please do so. Yung gano'n. Doon sa mga nangangailangan, sa mga priority groups. Pero kung hindi mo na-receive pa, you're otherwise healthy, then it means may protection ka pa naman. Remember when we started this, all of the other vaccines, ang guesstimate is 1 taon ang epekto, hindi ba? E napag-aralan na lang nga ng tuloy-tuloy, kaya sinabing, at 6 months pala magwe-wane. But that has a range. So wag tayo matakot na, wala na, lumapas na, ka-7th month na, wala na kami protection. Meron pa rin naman.
Dahil sa mababa na cases natin and pagpapasko naman, we are lifting travel restrictions on the dozens of countries na nakalista dun sa so-called green, green list. Are you recommending with the emergence of this new potentially super variant, you think we should tighten a bit yung policy na yan? Lalo na halimbawa from people from Hong Kong, ang daming Pilipino dumadaan dyan either transiting or coming from Hong Kong. Are you recommending na a-review man lang?
Well, right now kasi, this is point of view ng epidemiologists and economics has nothing to do with what I'm going to say, okay? So, right now, halimbawa doon sa variant na yon, yung bago sa South Africa, alam nating nasa South Africa, di siguro dapat nga na wag muna tayong tumanggap ng taong nanggagaling sa mga tao doon. Now you're saying sa galing sa Hong Kong, meron namang before they boarded the plane, meron na protection ng mga yan, di ba? Because it's a requirement. So we just assume that they are safe, And for our families, kung alanganin kayo, natatanggapin nyo ng buong puso itong ating mga balikbayan, di ganun pa rin, mag-ingat muna na 1 linggo hanggang sa 10 linggo, wag muna, at least 7 days na wag nakikisalamuha or at least practicing yung minimum public health standards kahit sa loob ng bahay. Kung tayo'y nag-aalanganin do sa ating mahal sa buhay na dumating from abroad.
How about the policy on children, yung easing of restrictions? You think there are areas where we can improve the rules just for safety?
Right. For me, yes, I understand that it's for the mental health of children na kailangan na nila lumabas. Bakit naman kailangan sa mall unang-unang dadalhin? Na kung saan, hindi ba? Pwede naman natin ilabas yung mga anak natin na dalhin mo sa park o dalhin mo sa kung saan na open air at hindi sa mall. What I'm trying to say is at the end of the day, it's really the individuals look out. The parents, the moms, we know, naiintindihan na natin kung ano ito. So dapat, nasa sa atin na rin kung paano natin protektahan. We are winning battles. We haven't won the war. So kahit na sinasabi natin mababa, wag sana mausog. And dapat hanggang mababa, we still have to do our parts.
Dr. Conky, that's such a very, very powerful question that you just raised. Napakasimple, pero tagus yun sa lahat ng tao, di ba? Parang, ilabas nyo yung mga bata, ipasyal nyo kung kailangan nyo for their mental health, pero bakit naman kailangan sa mall ang unang-unang pasyal? I don't know if you've been going out, Dr. Conky, pero traffic is back, pumipila. Apart from seeing people bring their children to the malls, what are some other things na para sa inyo, mga eksenang nakikita nyo na madali naman sanang pag-isipan natin?
Oo. Dito po sa amin, nasa Tarlac ako ngayon, ang tourist attraction natin ay yung Belenismo. May mga bilen na malalaki na pinupunta. makikita ko nag-fluff-lock yung mga tao doon. My heart is sinking. Talagang parang ang sarap silbatuhan. Na teka muna sandali, yung ganon. Katulad nun, we want to see those things. I guess, well, you can drive by kung nasa sasakyan ka. Daanan mo na lang sa sasakyan. Huwag ka na bumaba, huwag ka na makipagsiksikan pa na pumunta doon. And then, I guess kung talagang hindi maiwasan, the masks and the shields, although many are saying hindi na kailangan the shields will give you 20% more protection kesa doon sa mask lang. So, still do that. And I don't know how many parents can actually ask their children or see to it that their children they have alcohol or hand sanitizer sa bag nila. Lalo na pag dinala mo sa mall na dampot dito, dampot doon, ganon, you will just have to practice those minimum public health standards.
Well, apart from COVID, isa pang preoccupation natin ngayon, as you well know, is politics. At nakikita nyo naman yung mga hindi pa, well, they're not calling it campaign yet, pero nagsosorty na sila, di ba?
That's correct.
What can you say about those gatherings? Talagang siksikan yung mga yun.
Oo. Again, hindi kayo nagkulang. Kayo ang partners namin. Hindi nagkulang sa paalala sa mga tao tungkol sa social distancing, and kung hindi naman ganun ka-importante, wag na muna puntahan. So I guess at the end of the day, it really depends on the individuals.
Pero ma'am, I mean, you're with the NITAG. It's an advisory group. Are you in touch with COMELEC? Do you have regular sessions with COMELEC, specifically to talk about how do we, specifically to develop protocols and guidelines, not for voters, but for the people running these campaigns?
Oo. We haven't really talked about that. Well, even sa mga scientific na pinag-uusapan namin, again, I tell you that we're only recommendatory. Pagdating sa mga mas nakakataas sa amin, doon sa IATF, doon sa mga nag-execute, nasa sa kanila na. Wala sa kamay namin. We can just recommend. And thank you. We can talk about that the next meeting namin probably. But hanggang recommendations.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but did I hear that right? Na in all of this time, there has not been a specific agenda between NITAG and the COMELEC to specifically talk about what's going to happen in these campaigns?
Yes. Yes, I mean, wala pa kami pinag-uusapan. And I don't really know if sa NITAG ba
hindi. Yeah.
trabaho yun? Kasi immunization kami, di ba?
Yeah.
So I guess it's more of, DOH or the Epidemiology Bureau, yung ganon, but maybe not necessarily NITAG.
Ang nauuso ngayon, imbis na mga campaign rallies na yung naglalakad mga tao, mga marches, yung motorcycle, mga motorcades. Is that safe? Kasi pag nakita mo medyo magkakadikit din sila. How safe is that?
Well, at least if it's motorcades, meaning nakamotorsiklo sila, siguro open air naman, right? So aside from yung hopefully, naka-helmet sila, nakasara sila, so hopefully it's safe. Tabi-tabi ang aksidente naman na pag-usapan natin dyan, hindi ba? So hopefully it's safe kung sa motorcade, rather than talagang yung naka-flock ang mga tao sa isang lugar.
Which reminds me, balikan ko yung mga bata. Sabi nyo nga, bakit naman kailangang sa mall kaagad automatic ang pasyal? So, ano yung magagandang pasyal para sa mga bata? Kung ilalabas nila, basta outdoors, do we automatically assume na safety tayo dyan?
It is more safe. It is more safe than it's more safe and healthier, really, kesa doon sa nasa loob ng mall, hindi ba? And when you're outside, the tendency is, ayon sa gusto mo, may social distancing ka. I mean, what's the point of magsiksikan kayo sa loob ng park, hindi ba? So talagang you assume that it's a wider expanse of space rather than kung nasa mall.
So yung outdoor market, safer also. Kasi mahilig ako sa outdoor
Nako,
market.
yan. May
Pwede
conflict
ba
of interest na
mag-outdoor?
tanong si Abby dyan.
Oo, pumunta ka ng alanganing oras. Huwag ka pupunta nung alas 5, alas 6 na nagfla-flock yung mga tao. Pupunta ka ng alauna o kaya first thing in the morning. Because, yeah, outdoor market, it's good. But then again, eto, hinahawak-hawakan din ng mga tao. And then what if naka-flock na rin kayo doon sa isang stall? You know, but then people already know. They know how to protect themselves, and we will just have to continue to protect ourselves. Huwag tayong pakakasiguro, no complacency, sinabi nga. Huwag tayong maging kampante. Just ngayon lumuwag-luwag tayo, well and good, we can go out, but we still need to protect ourselves.
Kasi yung mga Christmas bazaar, syempre, open naman eh. Doon maraming mga sinasamang mga bata eh.
Oo nga,
So,
hindi mo...
yun.
Oo. Christmas Bazaar, pinupunta ako Christmas Bazaar, yung expo doon sa World Trade Center na mukhang nagkakagulo din ng mga tao, di ba? Or yung mga outdoor kunyari, but
Outdoor
but the stalls are so near each other that you tend to bump. I guess ang pwedeng gawin doon is yung mga nasa gate would know halimbawa na, o sige, 100 katao muna. Tapos habang walang lumalabas, huwag muna magpapasok. Or something as simple as that na posibleng ikagalit ng consumer, but it's really for our own good.
Hey, Doktora, I don't know if you've seen this or you've had friends, I'm sure, na nagta-travel na, domestic, and they're sharing pictures of yung mga waiting lounges, mga terminals sa airport. Nakakatakot naman talaga, di ba? Kung titingnan mo. On the other hand, some were pointing out, pero lahat ng katabi ko dito, almost by definition, bakunado. Di ba? So all in all, when we see pictures like that, or when people are going to the airport, how should they feel when they enter the airport and siksikan makita nila?
Siyempre, nasa airport management naman yan na in the first place, kung mahaba na pila, nagpa-practice pa rin dapat ng di ba? Dapat walang siksikan. Dapat nakapila pa rin na sapat yung spacing in between. But we assume that they are bakunado, so they are safe. Again, kung nakamask ka at kahit pagtawanan ka na nakashield pa yung tao, hindi naman na dapat mag-shield. It's really up to you for more protection.
Do you think yung pagmamask that's one differentiator between potential surges here and actual surges in Europe? Because alam naman natin, iba yung, parang may iba sa kultura, no?
Yes, from day one. Alam mo, even 3 months ago, bago yung second surge natin, nisip ko na yun na we must be doing something right. Kasi hindi ganun talaga kataas yung take-off sa atin. And from last time na nag-umpisa tayo, nung sabihin sa ating mag-mask, although may mga pasaway, mas nakakarait naman talaga yung nag-o-observe ng mask and face shields. Okay, so I guess that has been protective of us. And we benefited from that.
Doctor, yung private sector, may mga natirang doses, no? And they're asking the government kung pwedeng gamitin na yon for boosters for their employees. Ang sinasabi ng gobyerno, bigyan nyo na lang sa amin dahil marami pang kulang. What are your thoughts on this? Kasi mataas din naman yung vaccine hesitancy sa ibang probinsya. Sa Quezon daw, 37,000 doses hindi magamit ng Sinovac. Ayaw daw ng mga tao na namimili.
Oo nga.
What are your thoughts on this?
Oo. Well, I understand that from the private sector, ino-offer naman nila doon sa families ng staff nila. It's not only the staff itself, but their family. So I guess, they can continue to do that, I guess, because that's the private sector. And that's the other, isa pa yun sa magkokomenta ko, hindi naman mababantayan ng DOH lahat. Yeah. Even if we say that they shouldn't, they will still do it. And we know there are anecdotes na merong gumagawa talaga. And they will still do it.
Ang booster yon, Doc, yung hinihingi nila na gamitin daw for boosters.
That's correct. So, nasa sa kanila na yon kung gagamitin nila. Pero sana, sundan nila yung booster. So, after 6 months.
Yes.
Okay? Hindi yung, nagkataon magkakaganito. 3 months pa lang magmula nung nag-second dose. Sige na, go na. Sundan naman natin kahit na papano yung science of it all.
6 months except Janssen.
Right, that's correct.
Pag Janssen, 3 months.
2 months ang nakalagay
2 months
dito.
only. 2
At least, sorry, bulag ako. Tama ka, 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, Doc, dun sa ano na yon, even if, let's say, mag-open up na sa'yo yung option for booster, tama ba yung pagkakaintindi ko? Ultimately, you need a recommendation or even a reseta from your doctor para malinaw kung homologous ka dapat or heterologous. Are there other requirements that people should be mindful of if and when they actually have the opportunity to line up for a booster shot?
Oo. Well, para mapadali ang usapan kasi, kung ano yung binigay sa iyo dati, kung ano yung platform mo, as much as possible, yun sana din ang iyong ika-third dose except for AstraZeneca. Ngayon, ang bottom line pa rin is that kung ano yung available na pwede pang third dose, di tanggapin mo na.
Talaga,
Kasi
wala?
pwede naman
Hindi, kasi may nakikita ako mga charts na sinasabi, pagka ito yung nakuha mo, ito yung heterologous na pwede sa'yo, and so on. I mean, do we still follow that basic principle that the best vaccine is the available vaccine? Or in this case of boosters, is there something more that actually needs to be qualified?
O ganito para matandaan natin. Alam naman natin na yung brand sa Amerika na Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, di ba? Yung tatlong yon, kumbaga, sige, kahit yun ang i-mix and match mo, pwede. Okay? And then Sinovac also can be, ang sa Sinovac, Astra, Pfizer, Moderna. Okay? Hindi Johnson & Johnson kasi 1 dose nga lang kasi yung Johnson & Johnson. So it just means kahit na ano pwede. So kumbaga, when you look at the table, hindi ka naman malilito kasi kumbaga, kahit ano pwede. Naiba lang yung halimbawa Johnson & Johnson kasi nga single dose lang yon.
Pero you mentioned AstraZeneca, sabi mo yung booster should not be AstraZeneca, tama ba yan?
Naka-asterisk yung AstraZeneca because there are some recommendations, na mukhang mas effective kapag ibang brand ang ipamuboost mo for AstraZeneca.
Pfizer or Moderna, not Sinovac.
No, Astra, right. Kung AstraZeneca ka, Pfizer and Moderna.
Okay.
Okay?
Not
Although nakalista naman sa AstraZeneca, naka-asterisk lang yan, kung homologous, pwede pa rin naman kung yun ang available. Hindi ba?
Okay.
Ang gulo, no? Hindi. Ganito yon. The best vaccine is really the one in your arms. Okay? Lagi tayo nagkakagulo pag sinasabi natin you have a choice. Actually, pagpunta nila doon sa for their booster, o di kung ano available doon, i-guide din naman sila. Kung walang available na iba at iisa nandun, o di yun na ang kunin nila.
Okay. Dr. Conky, we're almost out of time, but we just want to remind everyone, November 29 to December 1, major campaign by government. We want to vaccinate 15 million people. Kaya ba? And Dr. Conky, we'll let you have the final word. What do people need to know? Lalong-lalo na yung mga hindi pa bakunado. What do they need to know about this 3-day push and beyond? For that matter, hindi naman po titigil sa December 1. Tuloy-tuloy pa.
Oo. Kung gusto po natin maligaya ang Pasko natin, kung gusto na natin maakap ang mga gusto nating akapin sa buhay, please, have yourself vaccinated. Nandiyan na, darating na sa atin, wala nang tanong-tanong, nakapila ka, i-ineksyonan ka. So please, let us take advantage of the National Immunization Days on November 29th to December 1st. Okay? At kung ano po yun nandun, tanggapin na po natin. Huwag po tayong mamili sapagkat pagka-protektahan po natin ang sarili natin, it's not only ourselves, kundi yung mga mahal natin sa buhay.
So, have yourself a vaccinate Christmas.
Yeah. maraming salamat po, Dr. Conky Lim Quizon.
Thank you, Dr. Quizon.
Maraming salamat
Thank
po.
you.
Mag-iingat po kayo.
Kayo rin.
And that's all for this edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, and we are One News.